Hello, and welcome back to After Work English. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Jake. Come in, sit down, take a breath, and let your shoulders relax a little.
Today we're talking about something very normal, very human, and honestly very annoying.
Yes, that thing where you say, I'll do it later, and then somehow later becomes tomorrow, and tomorrow becomes next week.
We're talking about procrastination, and more importantly, how to stop waiting and begin today.
Not in a scary, hard, super productive way.
No, not in a harsh way, not in a wake up at 5, change your whole life in one morning way.
Thank goodness. I was worried you were about to tell me to run up a mountain before breakfast.
Never. This episode is for real people with real lives, busy people, tired people, people who want to do something important but keep delaying it.
That could be studying English, sending an email, cleaning one corner of your room, applying for a job, making a doctor's appointment, or finally starting that small habit you keep promising yourself.
And if that is you, this episode will help. We'll talk about why we procrastinate, what is really happening in those moments, and how to begin in a calm, simple, doable way.
I like that word doable. Not impressive, not dramatic, just possible.
And a quick level note before we go on, this episode is around B1 to B2 level, with clear everyday English.
If you miss a few words, stay with the main idea, and come back later if you want another listen.
Exactly. And early in the episode, if you want, leave a comment or just answer quietly to yourself. What is one small thing you have been putting off recently?
And what is the smallest first step? Not the whole project, not the perfect plan, just the first visible step.
Keep that in your mind while you listen. You might notice that the thing you are delaying is not impossible. It may just feel heavy, unclear, or emotionally uncomfortable.
That's such an important point. Sometimes the task is small, but the feeling around the task is big.
Yes. Let's stay there for a moment. People often think procrastination means laziness.
But very often, it doesn't.
Very often, procrastination is protection. You delay because something inside you wants to avoid stress, failure, boredom, confusion, or shame.
So your brain is not saying, I'm a bad person. Your brain is saying, this feels unpleasant. Let's go look at something easier.
Exactly. Let's open social media. Let's clean the kitchen. Let's make tea. Let's suddenly become very interested in organizing old photos.
I have never felt more seen.
And sometimes the strange part is this. While you avoid the task, you do not feel relaxed. You feel a little guilty the whole time.
Yes, that low, quiet pressure in the background, like a mosquito in your room at night, tiny but impossible to ignore.
That is a great image. The task keeps buzzing in your mind.
You're watching a show, but half of your brain is whispering. You still didn't send that email.
So procrastination does not really give peace. It gives delay. And delay often creates more stress.
Which is why today's idea is simple. Don't wait until you feel perfect, ready, brave, or highly motivated. Start smaller than that.
Let's make this real. Imagine a listener named Mina. She works all day, gets home tired, eats dinner, and tells herself she should practice English for 1 hour.
1 whole hour. Very noble, very ambitious, also maybe a little dangerous.
Exactly. Because after dinner, Mina is tired. 1 hour feels big. So she thinks, I can't do it properly tonight, I'll do it tomorrow.
Tomorrow arrives. Same story.
Then a week passes and she starts feeling bad about herself. She says, why can't I just be consistent?
But maybe the problem is not her character. Maybe the problem is the size of the start.
Yes, 1 hour became a wall. A better start might be 10 minutes, or even 5 minutes, or one short activity with a clear ending,
Like listening to one short audio while washing dishes,
or reading one paragraph out loud.
or opening a notes app and writing 3 sentences about your day.
That is still practice. It still counts, and this matters. Small action builds trust.
I want to pause on that, because many people think small action is too small to matter.
But small action is often the beginning of momentum. And momentum means movement that becomes easier after it starts.
Like pushing a bicycle. The first push is awkward. Then the wheels turn, and suddenly it feels lighter.
Yes, the start is often the hardest part, not because the whole task is huge, but because stopped energy is heavy.
Stopped energy. That's good.
Think of a cold car in winter. The engine needs a moment. Your own mind can feel like that too.
So when you are procrastinating, maybe you do not need a better personality. Maybe you need a gentler ignition.
That lands.
Thank you. I am available for calendars and inspirational mugs.
Let me tell you a small story. A woman I know wanted to improve her English speaking, but she kept postponing it because she thought practice only counted if she had a full, quiet study session.
Hi, yes, the famous perfect study session. Clean desk. Good light. Favorite notebook. Ideal energy, no noise, no stress. Perfect hair.
Exactly. A very beautiful fantasy.
Very expensive, very rare.
One day, she changed the rule. She said, practice counts if I speak English for 5 minutes while I make tea.
Much more realistic.
So she did that. She stood in her kitchen and said simple things out loud. I am boiling water. I had a busy morning. Tomorrow I need to call my manager. Very plain, very normal.
But real language.
Yes. And because it was easy to begin, she did it again the next day. Not perfectly, not every day, but often enough to feel different.
That phrase matters too, often enough to feel different.
Right. You do not need a perfect record. You need a living pattern. Something that can survive your actual life.
Especially if your life includes work, family, commuting, dishes, messages, laundry, and that one mysterious bag that has been sitting by the door for 3 days.
We all know that bag.
We do?
Let's teach a small phrase here. We said putting off. If you put something off, you delay it. You do not do it now. You move it to later.
For example, I kept putting off my homework until Sunday night,
Or, he put off calling the dentist for 2 weeks.
which, by the way, is such a human task to delay. Calling the dentist feels like the task is 10 minutes, but emotionally it feels like climbing a hill,
Yes. And that leads to another key idea. Sometimes the task is not unclear. Sometimes it is emotionally loaded.
meaning it carries extra feeling.
Exactly. Maybe the email means conflict. Maybe the application means possible rejection. Maybe the English practice reminds you that you are not yet where you want to be.
So you are not only avoiding the task, you are avoiding the feeling.
Yes. And when that happens, telling yourself, just do it, is often not enough.
Because one part of you says, do it, and another part says, no thank you, I would like safety and snacks.
So we need something wiser. We need to make the task safer to start.
How do we do that?
We shrink it, we clarify it, and we make the first step almost too easy.
Let's make that concrete.
Instead of saying, I need to finish the report, you say, I will open the report and write the date at the top.
Instead of I need to study English, you say, I will read one page and underline 3 useful phrases.
Instead of, I need to clean the apartment, you say, I will wash the cups in the sink.
This is important. Your brain can begin a clear action much more easily than a giant cloudy idea.
Yes, study more is cloudy. Listen to one 6-minute podcast on the bus is clear.
Get healthy is cloudy. Walk to the corner and back after lunch is clear.
And when something is clear, it becomes doable.
Another useful word, doable means possible, realistic, not too difficult to begin.
For example, an hour of study was too much for me, but 10 minutes felt doable.
Or, cleaning a whole room felt impossible, but clearing the desk felt doable.
Here is another story. A man named David wanted to start exercising after work, but he kept failing. Every evening he thought, I should do a full workout.
Dangerous phrase again. Full workout.
Yes. In his mind, exercise meant changing clothes, finding the right video, using the mat, sweating properly, and doing at least 30 minutes.
So of course, when he felt tired, he did nothing.
Then he changed the rule. After dinner, he only had to put on his shoes and walk outside for 5 minutes.
That sounds almost too small.
It did, but it worked. Some evenings he walked 5 minutes. Some evenings 10. A few evenings 20. But the important thing was this. He became someone who started.
That is such a powerful identity shift. Not I am amazing, just I begin.
Yes. And that change is quiet but deep. Every time you begin, you tell yourself, I can trust myself a little more.
Self-trust. Another phrase I love.
Self-trust means believing that you will do what you say you will do, even in a small way.
Not because you are perfect, but because you follow through often enough.
Exactly. And follow through means continuing with something you plan to do until you actually do it.
For example, she said she would practice every morning, and this time she followed through.
Or, I had a simple plan and I followed through on it.
I think many adults are not only trying to finish tasks, they are trying to rebuild self-trust.
I agree. Because when you delay something again and again, you start to doubt yourself. You think, maybe I never do what I say.
And that thought hurts.
It does. So let's say something clearly. If you have been procrastinating, that does not mean you are broken. It does not mean you are weak. It does not mean you are doomed to stay this way.
It may simply mean your current starting method is not working for your real life.
Yes, that is a practical problem, not a moral failure.
That sentence might help someone breathe a little easier today.
I hope so. Let's talk about perfectionism for a moment, because perfectionism and procrastination are close friends.
Unhelpful friends.
Very unhelpful. Perfectionism is when your standards are so high that they stop movement,
You do not begin because you want the beginning to look beautiful,
or you do not speak because you want your English to sound smooth and correct immediately.
or you do not write the email because you want every sentence to sound smart, calm, and perfect.
But perfectionism often sounds reasonable. It says, I just want to do a good job.
Which sounds lovely, very innocent.
But if good job secretly means no mistakes, no discomfort, no awkwardness, then you may never start.
Yes, and language learning is especially vulnerable to this. If you wait to speak until your English is perfect, you may wait forever.
Spoken English grows by being spoken. Messy first, clearer later.
Like learning to cook. You do not become a good cook by reading recipes for 2 years and never touching a pan.
Exactly. At some point, the onion must meet the knife.
Poor onion, but excellent lesson.
So if you notice perfectionism, try asking, what would this look like if it were simple? Human and enough for today?
I love that question. Not perfect. Enough for today.
Enough for today might be one paragraph, one message, one page, one 5-minute walk, one honest start.
Let's offer another real-life scene. Imagine you need to send an email that you have delayed for 4 days.
You keep thinking about it in the shower, during lunch, before sleep.
It has become larger in your mind than it really is.
Yes, so instead of saying, I must write the perfect email, you open a draft and write one plain sentence. Hi, I wanted to follow up on our last conversation.
That is manageable.
Then perhaps the second sentence comes. Maybe not immediately, but now the door is open.
That image helps me. Starting is like opening a door in a stuffy room. Air comes in.
That lands. Before action, the task sits outside the room like pressure. After action, even a tiny action, the pressure changes shape.
It becomes something you are inside with, not something chasing you from outside.
Yes, and this matters for learners too. Sometimes the best first step is not master this, it is touch this.
Touch the task?
Open the book, read the first sentence, say one line out loud. Write one bad sentence. Touch the task.
Because contact creates connection, and connection is often stronger than intention.
That is a strong line. Intention is good, but contact is better.
We all know people with beautiful intentions.
Sometimes we are those people.
Absolutely.
Let's add another useful word, overwhelm. Overwhelm is the feeling that something is too much, too big, or too difficult to handle.
For example, I felt overwhelmed, so I closed my laptop and walked away.
Or, the project overwhelmed me because I did not know where to begin.
If you feel overwhelmed, the answer is often not more pressure. It is more structure and more kindness.
Yes. Ask, what is the next visible action? Not the whole plan, the next visible action.
Visible is important, something your body can do now.
Open. Write, call, wash, read, listen, stand up, put on shoes.
Tiny verbs. Very powerful.
Here is a small metaphor I like. When people procrastinate, they often think they need a giant bridge from where they are now to the future version of themselves.
The calm, organized, energetic future self.
Yes, but usually you do not need a bridge. You need one stepping stone,
Just one place to put your foot.
then another, then another. Confidence often grows after movement, not before it.
That is worth repeating. Confidence often grows after movement, not before it.
So if you're waiting to feel confident before you begin, you may be waiting for something that only arrives after the beginning.
Which is rude, but true.
Very true.
Can we talk about routines for a minute? Because sometimes people hear start small, but they still forget.
Yes. One gentle way to help yourself is to connect the new action to something you already do.
Like after making coffee, I read one short article in English.
Or, after I brush my teeth at night, I review 5 vocabulary cards.
Or sitting on the edge of your issue, I spend 3 minutes writing tomorrow's first task.
This creates an anchor. An anchor is something stable that helps hold a habit in place.
For example, tea time became my anchor for evening English practice.
Exactly. You do not need a perfect schedule. You need a reliable moment.
And another trick I love is making tomorrow easier before today ends.
Yes, that is so useful. Leave the book on the table. Put the shoes by the door. Open the document and write the title. Prepare the first step.
Reduce friction.
Nice phrase. Friction is small difficulty that makes action harder.
For example, if my headphones are already in my bag, there's less friction, so I am more likely to listen on the train.
Tiny changes matter. People often think change must feel big to be real.
But quiet systems can change a life. A notebook in the right place, a shorter task, a clearer first step, a kinder sentence in your own head.
Ah, yes. The voice in your head. We should talk about that too.
Because sometimes procrastination is fed by the way we speak to ourselves.
If you miss one day and tell yourself, I'm hopeless, I never do anything right, that usually does not help you begin again.
It makes the task feel heavier, and it makes you want to hide.
But if you say, I slipped today, let me restart with one small action, you stay close to yourself.
That phrase feels safe. Stay close to yourself.
We need that. Growth is easier when you are not fighting yourself the whole time.
And maybe that is one of the deepest lessons in today's episode. Action does not always come from pressure. Sometimes it comes from gentleness.
Yes, calm action can be very powerful.
Not loud, not dramatic, not exciting, just steady.
If you've been listening and thinking, this all sounds nice, but my life is truly busy, I want to say this clearly, small counts.
Small absolutely counts.
If you work long hours, care for children, help family members, or simply feel tired in this season of life, you do not need to copy someone else's routine.
You need something honest.
Honest is the word. An honest plan fits your real energy, your real schedule, your real home, your responsibilities,
Not your fantasy life.
not your fantasy life.
Let's do a little recap, because we've covered a lot.
If you procrastinate, it does not automatically mean laziness. Often it means the task feels unclear, too large, emotionally uncomfortable, or connected to perfectionism.
The answer is usually no more shame.
It is a smaller start, a clearer action, less friction, and a kinder inner voice.
And most of all, movement before mood. You do not always need to feel ready. You need a beginning small enough to do in the life you actually have.
Beautifully put. And if you have been hard on yourself lately, let this part land gently. You are allowed to start badly. You are allowed to start late. You are allowed to start small.
But please start.
Yes, start with something that respects your humanity.
Not with punishment, with honesty.
Before we close, let's do a vocabulary review with some useful words and phrases from today's episode.
We'll keep the meaning simple, and we'll give you examples you can use.
First, procrastinate. To procrastinate means to delay doing something that you should do.
Example, I procrastinated on my assignment and finally finished it on Sunday evening.
Second, put off. This means to delay something until later.
Example, I kept putting off my phone call because I was nervous.
Third, doable. Doable means possible and realistic to do.
Example, 20 pages felt too much, but 3 pages felt doable.
Fourth, overwhelm. Overwhelm is the feeling that something is too much to handle.
Example, I felt overwhelmed by the project, so I broke it into smaller parts.
Fifth, momentum. Momentum is the energy that builds after you begin moving.
Example, once I cleaned the desk, I had momentum and cleaned the floor too.
Sixth, perfectionism. Perfectionism means wanting everything to be perfect, often so much that it stops action.
Example, her perfectionism made it hard for her to send even a simple email.
Seventh, follow through. To follow through means to do what you said you would do.
Example, I made a small plan and followed through the next morning.
Eighth, self-trust. Self-trust means believing that you can depend on yourself.
Example, each small study session helped me rebuild self-trust.
Ninth, friction. Friction is a small obstacle that makes something harder to do.
Example, keeping my book in my bag removed friction so I read more often.
10th, anchor. An anchor is a stable routine or moment that helps support another action.
Example, breakfast became my anchor for daily vocabulary review.
If you want, you can repeat those words later and make your own examples. That is a great way to remember them.
And now, a tiny piece of homework. Very tiny, friendly homework.
Choose one thing you have been delaying.
Then write or say this sentence, today my first step is.
And keep that step so small that it feels almost easy.
Open the page. Wash the cup. Write the first line. Put on the shoes. Read one paragraph. Send one message.
If you want, leave a comment and tell us your one small thing and your first step.
Not your perfect future plan, just today's beginning.
That is enough. More than enough, actually. Small beginnings have a quiet power.
They do. And if this episode helped you feel a little calmer, a little clearer, or a little more ready to begin, we're very glad you were here with us.
Thank you for spending this time with us on After Work English.
Take care of yourself. Start gently, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.